interview with a Ukrainian fighter pilot call sign Juice. Juice has been fighting on the front lines since day one in the air, flying his MiG-29. This interview is a real treat for you guys, and we're gonna check it out. My name is Max Villman. I'm a former fighter pilot on the Gripen fighter in the Swedish Air Force, and let's go. So the interview you're about to see some clips out of, it's in Canadian, some sort of Canadian show, and Juice is interviewed by them regarding mainly the F-16 and the war, the air war in Ukraine. So we're gonna jump over there and take a look. And the first clip is about the situation why Ukraine needs modern
missiles. In the area. And at the same moment, he had already catch you. He locked you by his radar, and
so they just started talking about the difference in radars, but now they're going to switch on to talk about air-to-air missiles and the difference between semi-active and active air-to-air radar missiles.
The same situation with missiles, air-to-air missiles, because they have much more advanced missiles, and the main problem is not even the range of their missiles, but the principle of its work. Because unfortunately we have very outdated semi-active radar missiles. So it means you need to fly towards to your enemy, having his jet in the field of view of your radar, and during all the flight of your missile.
Okay, so what he's saying here is describing the principle of a semi-active radar-guided air-to-air missile. And the main problem as he sees it is not mainly the range, even though Russians have longer range air-to-air missile. It is the main problem for him, for the Ukrainian Air Force, as he sees it, is that they have semi-active missiles, so the AA-10C. The principle of a semi-active radar missile is, like he described, you need to keep the target in your radar field of view all the way from launching up until impact of the missile. So because the radar of a fighter jet is always pointing forward, you need to continue steer in the threat direction, so to speak, towards the enemy, all the while your missile is flying in front of you towards the target. And that is, of course, putting you at more risk, because the other guy is obviously also shooting a missile at you.
Up to the moment of his jet destruction. So you need to fly like kamikaze towards to the front line, towards to his jet. At the moment, his missile is active missile, so it means it has its own radar in its head, and after the launch, Russian pilot can just turn away and fly to drink some vodka on his base and to celebrate one more aerial kill. And at the same time, his missile will fly to me, to my jet, absolutely in autonomous mode. So you don't need to have the missile with information from your radar. So it's much easier, it's much more effective, and it's much more safer. It's only.
Yeah, so he just ended by describing the principle of active radar missile. So just like the AMRAAM, for example. So with an active radar missile, you can fire it, and then at some point during the sequence, you can turn away, and the missile has its own radar and can update and navigate towards the target itself, while you are sort of flying from the threat environment. And this is obviously a big problem for the Ukrainians, that they just have semi-active missiles and old ones. And if they would get F-16s, they are also, of course, hoping to get AMRAAMs. AMRAAMs are active radar missiles, and that would help them a lot in this air superiority mission, of course. And one good thing is Sweden has actually just been approved to buy new AMRAAMs from the US, while at the same time Sweden will be reselling our older AMRAAMs back to the US, and the US will give them to Ukraine. So that is a really good thing that will probably help a little bit with what Juice is talking about right here.
Cruise missiles, it depends. Of course, it depends, because like low speed cruise missiles, like Caliber, like KH-101 or some stuff like that, Iskander K, we can intercept them. We are trying to intercept them even using MiGs and Su-27s, but with very low probability, very low effectiveness.
And now we are talking about intercepting cruise missiles. So cruise missiles is one of the main weapons the Russians are using to target targets deep within Ukraine. And cruise missiles, the slow cruise missiles, as he calls them, like Kaliber, Iskander-M, KH-101. So they are typically flying quite low and speeds, subsonic speeds, so Mach 0.8, Mach 0.9, somewhere around there. And they can be targeted by fighter jets because they're given RCS radar cross section, and you can fire your own air-to-air missiles towards them if you have a good attack vector. So they are trying to do that with MiG-29s and Su-27s already, but of course more modern aircraft like the F-16 with more modern air-to-air missiles as well would of course have a much higher probability of intercept and probability to kill these cruise missiles that are a big threat to Ukraine right now.
F-16 can make it much better. At the same time, KH-22, for example, it's a target for Patriot only. So fighter jets won't help with such high speed missiles. Of course, we can try, but it's not a typical target for the fighter jet.
So ballistic missiles are coming in a ballistic trajectory. It's typically very, very low probability of intercept for any modern fighter jet. So it's Patriot, so air-to-air defense, ground-based air defense that is designed specifically to counter that will need to handle that.
Yes. About carriers, backfires, Tupolev Tu-22 M3, which carries these missiles. It flies too far from our border, so F-16 won't solve this particular problem. That's why I hope maybe some intelligent projects will help with that. Maybe some Russians supporting Ukraine will help us with this problem. I hope, but definitely not F-16.
So it's not.
So what you just ended about there was the carriers of these kinds of cruise missiles, for example, the backfire, the Tupolev 22 M3. They fire their cruise missiles far beyond the front, far behind the front, and there's no chance that F-16 could reach it. So what he's talking about there is hoping for the intelligence community and friendly Russians to target these instead at their bases. And just a couple of days ago, I'm filming this just in the end of August, a couple of days ago, the Ukrainians actually used drones to do deep long-range strike missions against EL-76s and also backfires inside Russia. So obviously that is a better way of handling that instead of trying to reach them with F-16s, which would probably not be possible. And the last clip I want to show you guys is about the transition. So the training for the Ukrainians towards the F-16.
From the zero experience, how ready are Ukrainian pilots who already have?
Please do me a solid, leave a like on the video while you're watching this. It doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe to the channel as well.
Lots of experience, but on just different frame, different system.
Yeah, so it's called transition. It's a very standard procedure for any air force, for any type of airframe, and actually it's not a problem. It's not a great problem, and we have a lot of experience of cooperation with U.S. Air Force and with other partners, and we are absolutely sure that it's achievable, it's solvable. So we needed to start that a year ago. So it's not a problem to send some small groups of our pilots and of our ground personnel, technicians, and other guys to be trained, to be educated somewhere in the Western countries.
So JUICE does not see it as a problem to train these guys, the Ukrainians, on the F-16. And of course, that's his role. I mean, you need to look who's sending this message. Of course, the Ukrainians don't see it as a problem. I think I've talked about it a little bit during my previous videos about the issues. And I think that for intercepting cruise missiles, for example, it would be quite quickly to train Ukrainian pilots. But later on, doing more complex operations such as offensive air-to-ground missions, that will require much more training than just so to speak being able to intercept cruise missiles. But I think it depends on what you want the F-16s to do. The more complex missions you want them to be able to carry out, the more training you would require. So I think it depends a little bit more than the Juice talks about here. But of course, he has a mission to get the F-16s for Ukraine, and you must understand that as well, of course. And we're going to end the video with a little bit about losses and what will happen.
Guys, it's young guys, and that's why we need to send them as soon as possible. And a lot of older guys from reserve, they are ready to fly more missions. They are ready to have more duties with no weekend, with no like vacations and etc. They want to stay here to defend Ukraine, while these young guys will be trained.
Imagine there is an
So what he ended that short clip with was that when they are sending away some of the pilots and ground crew technicians and so on to train in the West, when that day comes, of course there's a slack to be picked up by someone else, and in this case it would be the ones who are left behind, reserves, the older guys, as he says, and they would have to get even less vacation, even less time off from the war, which of course would put a much higher strain on them than there already is. And I think you all need to think a little bit about this. I mean, these are humans we're talking about. No one can fight forever. It's been a war for way more than a year now, 1.5 years. And some of these guys, I think most of them have been continuously flying combat missions since then. Many have already died. So it's a big toll, and I think we need to get them these planes as soon as possible. But I will end it there. Please do me a solid. Give me a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Check out my social media here in the description below. You have also my Ko-fi link if you want to buy me a coffee and support the channel. Those donations is what makes this possible, of course. And until next time, as always, fly safe.